Hi there! I'm here with the meerkats that you already know from the first module when Professor Marta Manza talked about their behavior. In this video, I'm going to talk about taxonomy, which is that part of biological systematics that is concerned with describing and naming species and sorting them into groups. You could say that taxonomy is the bookkeeping of biodiversity. Humans have given names to other species of organisms, probably since we've developed the ability to communicate with words. Many species have therefore had names already for a very long time. These are mainly common, well-known and easily recognizable species, and especially those that are useful to humans, for example as food. Other species have gotten names only recently, and yet other species still need to be discovered and named. When it comes to names of organisms, we distinguish between scientific names and common names. Common names are the ones given to species in the traditional local language, for example German, English, Swahili or Korean. The problem with this is obvious. A single species might have hundreds of names around the globe. This makes communication rather problematic. So let's look at the names of these cute little mammals here as an example. The name that's used for them in the English language, meerkat, is actually not English at all. It's Afrikaans, the language spoken in South Africa. Afrikaans is derived from Dutch. Now this is where it gets problematic, because in the Dutch language, the name meerkat actually refers to certain monkeys, something completely different. You can see now that a scientific unique name would be quite useful. So it was good that in the 18th century, a man named Carl von Linné, or Carolus Linnaeus, suggested to give a unique name to each known species that would be the same around the world. And since at that time, the languages of science were Latin and ancient Greek, he decided that the names would consist of Latin and Greek words, or Latinized names. The scientific name for meerkat is Suricata suricata. Actually, the full name is Suricata suricata Schreber 1776. The first two words are the binomial, meaning a name consisting of two words. The first word is the name of the genus that the species belongs to, and the second word specifies which species in the genus it is. The convention of naming each species with two words is called binomial nomenclature. Grammatically, the first word is a noun and the second an adjective, which is why the first word always starts with a capital letter and the second word begins with a small letter. Writing the second word in a species name with a capital letter is simply wrong, but unfortunately I see this rather frequently. Also, scientific binomials are supposed to be printed in italics. The binomial could be followed by another adjective. That would be the subspecies name. For example, some biologists compared the meerkats and found that there are three subspecies: Suricata, Suricata siricata, Suricata suricata yona, and Suricata suricata majoriae. If the binomial is followed by a name starting with the capital letter, in this case Schreber, that's the name of the author who first described the species. The number behind the author's name is the year in which the species description was published. Let's do a little quiz. What is the correct way to write the scientific binomial for this species? Given the enormous diversity of life on Earth, we need a system, a framework, into which we can sort all these species. Such a system not only facilitates communication, it is useful in many ways. For example, when you want to sort the specimens in a biological collection into drawers and the drawers into cabinets. Since 1735, we have such a system. It's called Linnean Classification because it was developed by Carl von Linné, whom I've already mentioned. The Linnean Classification is a hierarchical system, meaning that one or more smaller units are contained in a bigger unit, and one or more bigger units are contained in an even bigger unit, and so forth. In biological classification, we use the word taxon instead of unit. A higher taxon contains one or more subordinate taxons. To follow our example, the genus Suricata happens to have only one species, Suricata suricata. Perhaps one day we might discover a second species belonging to this genus, but for now we only know this one species. So the genus Suricata is a monotypic genus. That's what we call a genus with only one species. Together with 7 other genera, it forms the subfamily Mongotinae. Mongotinae and Herpestinae together form the taxon Herpestidae, which is the mongoose family. Together with 5 other families, they belong in the suborder Filiformia, the cat-like carnivorans. Together with the dog-like carnivorans, named Carniformia, they make up the order Carnivora. Note that the term carnivorans is used to refer to this order Carnivora, whereas the term carnivore refers to any meat-eating species. The hierarchy keeps going on. The order Carnivora is part of the class Mammalia, mammals, which is in the phylum Chordates, which is part of the kingdom Animalia, animals, and those are part of the domain Eukaryota Eukaryotes, which are all organisms whose cells have a nucleus. As you may have noticed, some of these names are identical at the beginning and only differ in the ending, for example Herpestinae and Herpestidae. It is common in Linnean classification to name a taxon after one of its members. The ending is specific for the rank in the hierarchy. For example, in zoology, superfamilies always end with oidea, families end with idae, and subfamilies with inae. As an example, take the genus Felis, the cat. This genus is in Felinae, which is in Felidae, which in turn is part of Pheloidea, and that's in Filiformia. So how is the biological classification created? Which criterion is it based on? There are many possible criteria one could use to sort the species. For example, color. One could easily see, though, that that might be rather difficult, considering that many species have more than one color, and many different species have the same color. However, there are limited uses for this. I'm thinking of a plant guide I own, in which the plants are sorted by the colors of their flowers, so you can easily find them in the book. When Carl von Linné developed his system and published it in the book Systemae Naturae in 1735, the principle of evolution was not yet known. So he based his system on overall similarity. Since the discovery of evolution, we've used degree of relationship as a criterion. The classification is supposed to reflect the evolutionary history of the species, that is the phylogeny. So as biologists have made more and more discoveries about the evolutionary history of the species, the classification is continually being adjusted and continues to be modified. Let me give you an example. Look at this hyena. What do you think it is most closely related to? A cat? A bear? A dog? A deer? I think most people would guess that hyenas are most closely related to dogs because that's what they look like. Carolus Linnaeus thought so too and placed hyenas in the genus Canis together with dogs, foxes and wolves. However, of the 4 animals listed here, cats are the ones most closely related to hyenas. And that's why hyenas are now in the superfamily of cat-like carnivora. So, now you know a little bit about scientific names and the hierarchical Linnean taxonomic system with ranks. In the next video, Rita Nüffler is going to talk about how species are named and described. All these topics fall into the scientific discipline of taxonomy. The ultimate goal of taxonomy is to make an inventory and a classification of all the species on Earth. Fortunately, we are still very far away from that goal. Thank you for watching my video, and I hope you enjoyed it.